The key turned in the lock at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, 3 days earlier than anyone expected me home. My hands were still shaking from 48 hours of negotiations in Dubai, but not from exhaustion. Something had shifted in me during those endless conference rooms discussions about million-dollar properties I'd never live in. I'd closed a deal worth $3.2 million in commission, and all I could think about was that I had nobody to celebrate with, nobody who cared. I wanted to surprise Gregory, maybe cook dinner together for the first time in months, maybe just sit on the couch and talk like we used to 20 years ago before the empire I built became the only thing that mattered to me, before our marriage became scheduled appointments and logistics about whose turn it was to visit Daniel and Sienna. The house was quiet when I stepped into the foyer. My Tumi luggage made almost no sound on the marble floor I'd imported from Carrara 3 years ago. Gregory had protested the cost back then. $30,000 for flooring, Marcella? Really? But I'd insisted. I always insisted, and he always gave in. That should have told me something. I heard the laughter before I saw anything else. It was coming from the living room, drifting down the hallway like it belonged there. 2 voices, intimate and comfortable. Gregory's low chuckle, the kind he used to reserve for me decades ago. And a woman's laugh I recognized instantly because I'd heard it dozens of times at family dinners, birthday parties, Thanksgiving gatherings. Vivian Torres, my son's mother-in-law. The woman I'd complained about to Gregory just 3 months ago over breakfast. She's so irresponsible with money, Gregory. I don't understand how Sienna turned out so grounded with a mother like that. He'd just nodded and turned back to his coffee. Now I understood why. My heart was pounding as I moved down the hallway. Every step felt like walking through water. Part of me wanted to turn around, get back in my car, pretend I'd seen nothing. But my feet kept moving forward. The living room door was slightly open, and I pushed it wider without making a sound. They were on my couch, my $15,000 Italian leather sofa that I'd had shipped from Milan last year. Gregory's shirt was unbuttoned halfway down his chest. Vivienne's silk blouse was wrinkled, hiked up on one side. Her hand was on his thigh. His arm was around her shoulders. 2 wine glasses sat on my coffee table, half empty, next to an open bottle of Chateau Margaux 2015. The bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. $800 sitting there like it was nothing. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the expression on their faces when they saw me standing in the doorway. Not guilt, not shame, not even fear. It was irritation, pure, undiluted irritation that I'd interrupted something. Marcella. Gregory's voice was flat. He didn't even move his arm from around Vivienne's shoulders. You said you'd be back Friday. That was it. No, I can explain. No, this isn't what it looks like. Just a statement about my schedule being wrong. Like I was the one who'd made a mistake by coming home to my own house. Vivienne at least had the decency to move away from him, smoothing down her blouse. But her eyes met mine with something that looked almost like defiance. I should go. Yes, I heard myself say. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from underwater. You should. She grabbed her purse from the floor, slipped into her shoes. As she walked past me, she actually paused. Marcella, Get out of my house. The words came out cold and level. I didn't recognize my own voice. Get out right now, or I swear I will call the police and have you removed. She left. I heard the front door close behind her. Then it was just Gregory and me in the living room where we'd hosted Christmas dinner 5 months ago, where we'd celebrated Daniel's architecture firm landing its first major contract, where we'd toasted to Sienna's promotion. This room that had held so many family moments, now contaminated. How long? I asked. Gregory stood up slowly, buttoning his shirt. Does it matter? How? Long. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Resentment. Deep, settled resentment that had probably been there for years while I was too busy reviewing property contracts to notice. 8 months, he said. Since March. 8 months. While I was closing the deal in Toronto. While I was negotiating the London property portfolio. While I was on calls at midnight with investors in Singapore. 8 months of him bringing another woman into our home. Into our bed, probably. My stomach turned. In our house? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. You're never here, Marcella. He said it like that made it okay. like my absence was permission for betrayal. When was the last time we had dinner together? When was the last time you asked me about my day, my life? So this is my fault? The laugh that came out of me sounded borderline hysterical. You're standing there, smelling like another woman's perfume, drinking my wine with my son's mother-in-law on my couch, and this is my fault? Vivienne's mother-in-law, he corrected. Not yours. And yes, Marcella. Yes, you abandoned this marriage years ago. I just made it official. The casual cruelty of it staggered me. This was the man I'd married at 29. The man who'd held my hand through 2 miscarriages before we finally had Daniel. The man who'd supported my business dreams, even when it meant being a stay-at-home dad while I built my empire. When had he become this stranger who could justify betraying me with such cold logic? I need you to leave, I said quietly. Pack a bag. Go to a hotel. Go to her place. I don't care. But you need to leave this house right now. Marcella, right now, Gregory. For a moment, I thought he was going to argue. But something in my face must have told him I was serious, because he nodded slowly and headed toward the stairs. I stood in the living room, staring at those 2 wine glasses, listening to him move around upstairs, drawers opening, closet doors, the sounds of my marriage ending. He came back down 20 minutes later with a duffel bag, stopped at the bottom of the stairs. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said. Vivienne and I, we understood each other. We were both lonely. Get out. You're going to tell Daniel. It wasn't a question. Eventually. Right now I can barely process this myself. He'll hate me. Yes, I said. He probably will. That's what happens when you sleep with your son's mother-in-law, in his childhood home, using his mother's things. That's called consequences, Gregory. He left without another word. I heard his car start in the driveway, heard him pull away. Then the house was silent, except for the sound of my own breathing. I walked over to the couch and picked up the wine glasses. Vivienne's had lipstick on the rim, coral pink, her signature color. I'd complimented that lipstick once at Daniel's wedding reception 4 years ago. It suits you, I'd said. She'd smiled and thanked me. Had she and Gregory already been looking at each other then? Planning this? The bottle of Chateau Margaux was still half full. I'd bought it to celebrate my 20th anniversary with the company. That was next month. I'd imagined opening it with Gregory, maybe renewing our vows, trying to rebuild what we'd lost. What idiots we make of ourselves with our plans and hopes. I poured the rest of the wine down the kitchen sink, watched it swirl red down the drain like blood. Then I took both glasses and threw them against the marble backsplash I'd installed last year. The sound of breaking glass was satisfying. Not enough, but something. My phone was ringing. Gregory's name on the screen. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. Again. I turned it off completely and sat at my kitchen island, surrounded by the silence of my $1 million home that suddenly felt like a mausoleum. This was what I'd worked for. This pristine kitchen with its La Cornue range and Sub-Zero refrigerator. The marble countertops. The wine cellar Gregory had just raided to impress his mistress. I'd sacrificed everything for this success. Missed Daniel's school plays, missed anniversary dinners, missed the slow death of my marriage while I was too busy acquiring properties to notice I was losing the one thing that actually mattered. But even as I sat there in my expensive kitchen, in my expensive house, one thought kept circling back. Gregory was right about one thing. I had abandoned our marriage, not physically but emotionally. I'd stopped trying years ago, stopped asking about his day, stopped caring if he was happy or fulfilled. I'd assumed he was fine with being the supportive husband to my success story. But that didn't justify this. Nothing justified bringing another woman into our home. Nothing justified choosing my son's mother-in-law of all people. That wasn't loneliness. That was cruelty with calculation. I thought about Vivienne's face when she saw me. That flash of defiance, like she had a right to be there. Like I was the intruder in my own home. The audacity of it was almost impressive. My mind was racing, jumping from thought to thought. Should I tell Daniel tonight? Tomorrow? Wait a week? How do you tell your son that his father is sleeping with his wife's mother? How do you explain that level of betrayal without destroying his own marriage in the process? Because that's what this would do. Sienna worshipped Gregory as a father figure. This revelation would poison that, would poison everything. And Sienna, God. Sienna. She'd be devastated. She'd lose respect for her mother, question her father-in-law, maybe even question Daniel by association. One affair, two families destroyed. I pulled out my laptop and did something I'd never done before. Logged into Gregory's email. The password was pathetically simple. Daniel 2024. Our son's name and birth year. I found what I was looking for within 5 minutes. Months of correspondence between Gregory and Vivian. Intimate messages. Plans for weekends away when I was traveling. References to our place, which I realized meant the apartment Gregory had bought last year. The investment property he'd convinced me was a smart financial move. $340,000 of our joint money. For their love nest. I read through months of betrayal laid out in Arial 12-point font. She doesn't even notice I exist anymore. You make me feel alive again. Thank God she always tells me when she's coming back. Makes planning easier. They'd laughed about how predictable I was. How focused on work. How easy to deceive. The rage that hit me then was unlike anything I'd ever felt. Not hot anger, cold fury. The kind that makes you very, very calm. Very focused. I took screenshots of everything, downloaded the emails, saved them to 3 different drives. Then I did the same with his text messages, bank statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to, hotels I'd never stayed at. A paper trail of lies spanning 8 months. By the time I finished, it was almost 7 p.m. I'd been sitting at that kitchen island for 4 hours, documenting my husband's affair with methodical precision. The same focus I brought to business deals now applied to the dissolution of my marriage. My phone, still off, sat next to my laptop. I knew when I turned it back on, there would be calls from Gregory, maybe from Vivian, possibly from Daniel if Gregory had panicked and tried to control the narrative first. But I wasn't ready for that yet. I needed this quiet moment to process what my life had become. 57 years old, $8 million in assets, a thriving business, a beautiful home. And absolutely no one to share any of it with because the person I'd trusted most in the world had been sharing himself with someone else in the rooms I'd paid for. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built an empire and lost a kingdom. I met Gregory Rivington 30 years ago at a real estate seminar in Cambridge. I was 27, working as a secretary at a mid-sized property firm during the day and taking business classes at night. He was 29, a junior financial consultant with ambitions of making partner before 35. We were both hungry in those days, both climbing. He asked me to coffee after the seminar. I almost said no because I had an exam the next morning, but something about his smile made me reconsider. We talked for 3 hours at that coffee shop. He told me about growing up in Connecticut, old money family that expected him to work in finance like his father and grandfather. I told him about my parents, Maria and João Costa, Portuguese immigrants who'd left the Azores with nothing and built a life-cleaning office buildings in Boston. Every surface I'd studied on, they'd probably cleaned. You're going to be extraordinary, Gregory said that night. I can see it in you. That drive. 6 months later, we were engaged. A year after that, married in a small ceremony at City Hall because I refused to waste money on a wedding when we could use it for a down payment. That was me even then. Always calculating, always planning the next move. We bought our first property together when I was 28. A tiny 2-bedroom in Dorchester that needed everything. Gregory worked 60-hour weeks at his firm while I renovated that apartment on weekends, watching YouTube videos to learn how to tile a bathroom, install kitchen cabinets, refinish hardwood floors. We sold it 18 months later for a $40,000 profit. I was hooked. Daniel came when I was 31. 3 years of trying, 2 miscarriages that nearly broke us both, and then finally a healthy pregnancy that felt like a miracle. I took 8 weeks maternity leave from my job, then went back because we needed my salary. Gregory and I had started flipping houses on the side by then, and the business was growing faster than either of us had anticipated. I'll stay home with him, Gregory offered when Daniel was 6 months old. Your commission is higher than my salary now anyway. Makes financial sense. I should have asked if he wanted that, if he'd be happy being a stay-at-home dad. But I didn't because he was right. The numbers made sense. I was making almost $200,000 a year in real estate by then. His consultant salary was barely $90,000, so Gregory quit his job and I became the breadwinner. He was good at it, being a father. Better than I would have been, honestly. Patient where I was impatient, gentle where I was driven. He took Daniel to the park, to library story times, to toddler music classes. He packed lunches and attended teacher conferences and coached Little League. Meanwhile, I was building Rivington Properties from a side hustle into a legitimate business. By the time Daniel was 10, we'd moved into a proper house in Newton. 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, a yard where Gregory planted tomatoes every summer. I was managing a portfolio of 12 properties by then, clearing $500,000 annually. Gregory seemed happy. He'd bring me coffee in my home office while I worked late. He'd rub my shoulders when I was stressed about a deal falling through. "I'm proud of you," he'd say. "Look at everything you've built." But somewhere in those years, I stopped asking about his day, stopped noticing when he seemed quiet or distant. The business consumed me. Every property was a challenge to conquer. Every deal was a battle to win. I was proving something, though I couldn't have told you what. Maybe that the cleaning lady's daughter could become someone. Maybe that I deserved to take up space in rooms my mother had scrubbed. When Daniel left for college at 18, the house felt too empty. Gregory suggested we travel. We could do Europe, 3 weeks, visit Portugal, see where your parents came from. "After the Hartford deal closes," I said. "I can't leave right now." The Hartford deal closed 4 months later. By then, there was the Providence Project, then the New Haven acquisition, then the opportunity in Toronto that was too good to pass up. Gregory stopped asking about trips, started spending more time at the gym, joined a book club, took up photography. "That's great," I'd say, barely looking up from my laptop. "I'm glad you have hobbies." Hobbies. I'd reduced his entire existence to hobbies while I had a career, a purpose, an empire. We moved into the Beacon Hill mansion when I was 52. 4,000 square feet, 6 bedrooms, 3 fireplaces, a wine cellar, and a view of the common. Gregory walked through it the first time and said, "This is too much house for 2 people, Marcella." "We'll grow into it," I replied. "Daniel and Sienna can stay here when they visit. Maybe grandchildren someday." But Daniel and Sienna had their own place in Cambridge. They visited for holidays and occasional Sunday dinners, always rushed because they had their own lives. The mansion stayed mostly empty except for Gregory and me, occupying different wings like polite strangers. 2 years ago, Gregory retired at 58. He had a decent pension, good investments, enough to live comfortably even without my income. "I want us to enjoy life now," he said over breakfast one morning. "Travel, take classes together, actually spend time as a couple." "Sounds perfect," I said, checking emails on my phone. "Let me just close the Dubai deal first." The Dubai deal turned into the London portfolio. The London portfolio turned into a partnership with developers in Toronto. There was always one more deal, always one more mountain to climb. I remember the last real conversation we had before everything fell apart. It was 3 years ago, late at night, both of us in bed but miles apart. Gregory was reading. I was on my laptop. "Marcella," he said quietly, "are you happy?" I looked up, surprised by the question. "Of course. Business is incredible right now. We just crossed 8 million in total assets." "That's not what I asked. I don't understand what you want from me, Gregory." He closed his book, looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "I want you to see me, to know I exist, to care about something other than property values and commission rates. That's not fair. I work this hard for us, for our future. We're living in our future right now," he said. "This is it, this moment, and you're missing it." I should have put down the laptop, should have closed it, and really talked to him, asked what he needed, what we both needed. Instead, I said, "I have an early call with Singapore tomorrow. Can we talk about this later?" We never did talk about it later. He stopped bringing it up, started going to bed earlier, spending more time out of the house. I assumed he was adjusting to retirement, finding his rhythm. Never occurred to me he might be finding comfort somewhere else. Vivian Torres entered our lives 4 years ago, when Daniel started dating Sienna. I met her at a dinner where Daniel was introducing his new girlfriend to the family. Vivian showed up in a flowing bohemian dress, multiple bangles on her wrists, talking loudly about an art installation she was working on. She was everything I wasn't. Emotional, where I was logical. Impulsive, where I was calculated. Free-spirited, where I was controlled. "Your son is wonderful," she gushed at me. "Sienna is so lucky." "Thank you," I said politely. "What kind of art do you do?" "Mixed media installations exploring themes of feminine identity post-divorce." I must have made a face because Gregory kicked me gently under the table. Later in the car, he said, "Be nice to her. She's Sienna's mother. She's scattered, irresponsible. Did you hear her talking about spending $8,000 on materials for a piece that might not even sell? Not everyone measures worth in profit margins, Marcella." It was one of the sharpest things he'd ever said to me. I didn't respond, just drove home in silence, added it to the growing list of tensions between us that I filed away under "deal with later." Vivian and I maintained polite distance over the next few years. She came to family dinners. We made small talk. She complimented my house. I complimented her outfit. Surface-level pleasantries that required nothing real from either of us. I had no idea she and Gregory were actually talking. Really talking. The way he and I used to talk 30 years ago in that coffee shop. Sharing confidences, building intimacy, falling into something that would destroy everything. The signs were probably there. Gregory mentioning her name more often. Vivian said something interesting about art therapy. Ran into Vivian at Whole Foods. Vivian recommended this book, but I was too busy reviewing contracts to notice the pattern. Too focused on expansion plans to see my own marriage contracting into nothing. Last Christmas, 5 months before I discovered them together, we hosted dinner at the mansion. Daniel and Sienna, Vivian, my assistant Rebecca and her husband. Gregory cooked. I worked until the last minute, showing up just as guests arrived. Vivian was in the kitchen with Gregory, laughing over something while he basted the turkey. "Smells amazing," I said, grabbing a glass of wine. "Gregory's been teaching me his techniques," Vivian said. "I'm a disaster in the kitchen usually." They exchanged a smile. Comfortable, familiar. I felt a flicker of something then. Not quite suspicion, but awareness that they seemed close. Then Sienna called me into the living room to discuss a potential client for my business, and I forgot about it completely. That was my life. Always moving to the next thing. Never pausing long enough to see what was happening right in front of me. Sitting in my kitchen now, 4 hours after discovering my husband's betrayal, I could trace the entire path of how we got here. Every missed dinner, every postponed trip, every time I chose work over us. None of it justified what Gregory had done. But all of it explained how we'd become people who could hurt each other this deeply. I'd built an empire on the foundation of a crumbling marriage, and I'd been too blind to see the cracks until everything collapsed. I turned my phone back on at 9 p.m. 17 missed calls from Gregory, 8 from Vivian, 3 from Daniel. My stomach dropped seeing my son's name. Had Gregory already told him? Was he trying to control the narrative, paint himself as the victim of my neglect? I called Daniel back first. He answered on the second ring. "Mom, I've been trying to reach you for hours. Dad called, said you two had a fight, and you kicked him out." "What's going on?" "A fight." I almost laughed at the understatement. "Is that what he called it?" He sounded really upset. "Said you came home early and misunderstood something." "Mom, what happened?" "My son. My beautiful, trusting son who idolized his father. How do you destroy someone's hero? Can you come over tomorrow? I need to talk to you and Sienna together. You're scaring me. Are you okay?" "No," I wanted to say. "I'm the furthest thing from okay. I just discovered your father has been sleeping with your mother-in-law for 8 months in the house where you grew up." But instead I said, "I'm fine. Just come tomorrow, around 10? "Okay. But Mom." "Tomorrow, sweetheart. I promise I'll explain everything." After we hung up, I sat staring at Gregory's missed calls. Part of me wanted to call him back, demand more answers. Ask if they'd been in our bed, in Daniel's old room. How many times? How many lies? But what would that accomplish except more pain? Vivian's texts started coming through as I scrolled. "Marcella, please let me explain. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I never meant to hurt you. Can we talk like adults?" Like adults. The woman who'd been screwing my husband in my house wanted to talk like adults. I blocked her number. Then I poured myself a glass of water and went upstairs to the bedroom I'd shared with Gregory for 5 years. His side of the closet was partially empty. He'd taken suits, casual clothes, toiletries, left behind the tuxedo I'd bought him for charity galas. the cashmere sweater Daniel and Sienna had given him last Christmas, things that connected him to family. I stripped the bed. Every sheet, every pillowcase, the duvet cover, carried it all downstairs and threw it in the trash. Then I went back up and remade the bed with new linens from the guest room. If I was going to sleep in that room, it would be in a bed that felt clean. I didn't sleep, just lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through memories and rewriting them with new context. Gregory's late-night walks over the past months, the photography club that met twice a week, his sudden interest in modern art that required visits to galleries downtown. All of it lies, all of it time spent with her. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Rivington? This is Amanda Chen from Chen Investigations. Your assistant Rebecca contacted us last night regarding a matter you need looked into. Rebecca, my assistant for 6 years, who'd become something like a friend. I'd texted her at midnight in a moment of clarity. Need a private investigator. Best one you know. Urgent. Yes, I said. Thank you for calling so quickly. Rebecca explained the situation. I want to be clear about what we can and cannot do. We can document your husband's activities, financial transactions, verify the timeline of the affair. We cannot provide information that would be inadmissible in court or obtained through illegal means. I understand. How fast can you work? We can have preliminary findings within 48 hours. Comprehensive report within a week. Do it, whatever it costs. She quoted me a number that would have made me pause a year ago. Now it seemed like nothing. What's $5,000 to confirm the destruction of your life? Daniel and Sienna arrived at exactly 10. I watched them from the window, holding hands as they walked up the driveway. So young still. So untouched by the kind of betrayal that reshapes your understanding of people you love. I was about to change that. Mom, Daniel hugged me at the door. You look exhausted. What's going on? I led them to the living room. Different room from where I'd found Gregory and Vivian, but I still felt contaminated sitting there. Sienna perched on the edge of the couch, worried eyes locked on my face. I need to tell you something, I started, and there's no easy way to say it. Is someone sick? Sienna asked. Is it Dad? No one's sick. I took a breath. When I came home yesterday, I found your father with someone. They were together, on the couch, half-dressed. Daniel's face went blank. Together? What do you mean together? I mean they're having an affair. Have been for 8 months. That's impossible. He stood up, started pacing. Dad wouldn't. He's not that kind of person. You must have misunderstood. Daniel, I saw them. There's no misunderstanding this. Sienna's hand went to her mouth. Who? This was the moment. The sentence that would detonate in the middle of their marriage, too. Vivian, your mother, Sienna. The color drained from Sienna's face. My mother and Gregory? I'm so sorry. No. She shook her head violently. No, that's insane. My mom wouldn't. She knows how much I love Gregory. She knows how important this family is to me. She wouldn't do that. I have emails, text messages, bank records. It's been going on since March. Daniel stopped pacing, looked at me with his father's eyes. You're saying Dad has been sleeping with Sienna's mom? His son's mother-in-law? Yes. In this house? Yes. He sat down hard on the chair, put his head in his hands. Sienna was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I wanted to comfort them both, but felt paralyzed by my own pain. I need to call him, Daniel said. I need to hear him say it. He pulled out his phone, dialed, put it on speaker. Gregory answered immediately. Daniel, son, I'm so glad you called. Is it true? Are you sleeping with Vivian? Silence. Long enough that I knew Gregory was deciding how to spin this, what lies to tell. But Daniel didn't give him time. Don't you dare lie to me right now. I'm sitting here with Mom and Sienna. Is it true? It's complicated, Gregory finally said. That's not an answer. Yes, Vivian and I have been seeing each other. But Daniel, you need to understand the context. Your mother and I, we haven't had a real marriage in years. So get divorced, Daniel's voice cracked. You get divorced like a normal person. You don't fuck your son's mother-in-law. I'd never heard Daniel use that language, never heard that much rage in his voice. Don't talk to me like that, Gregory said. I'm still your father. You lost the right to pull that card when you betrayed Mom in her own house, with Sienna's mother. Jesus Christ, Dad, Sienna's mother! Sienna grabbed the phone. I need to talk to my mom. Now. She ended the call and dialed Vivian. I watched my daughter-in-law's face transform from hurt to fury as her mother apparently confirmed everything. How could you? Sienna's voice was shaking. How could you do this to me? To our family? Gregory is my father-in-law. He's Daniel's dad. What were you thinking? I couldn't hear Vivian's response, but I could see Sienna's reaction. The way her whole body stiffened. I don't care that you were lonely. I don't care that you felt invisible after your divorce. There are millions of men in Boston. Millions! And you chose the one person who would destroy everything. She hung up, threw her phone across the room, started sobbing in earnest. Daniel pulled her into his arms, and I watched my son comfort his wife over trauma our spouses had caused. The absolute waste of it made me want to scream. I'm going to confront them, Daniel said after Sienna had cried herself quiet. Both of them. Together. They want to be a couple so badly, they can explain themselves to us as a couple. Daniel, I don't think... No, Mom. They did this together. They can face us together. He called Gregory back. Where are you staying? The Residence Inn downtown. Daniel, if we could just talk, give me the address. Sienna and I are coming over. Call Vivian. Tell her to be there in an hour. If either of you aren't there, you'll never see or hear from us again. He hung up before Gregory could respond. Looked at me. Are you coming? Part of me wanted to watch them squirm. But another part knew this needed to be between Daniel and his father, Sienna and her mother. I'd had my confrontation yesterday in this house. No, this is yours. But Daniel? Whatever they say, whatever excuses they make, remember that they're adults who made choices. Choices they knew would hurt people they claimed to love. After they left, I sat in the silent house and waited. Called Rebecca. How are you holding up? She asked. I've been better. Listen, I need you to do something for me. Contact Michael Brennan at Brennan & Associates. Tell him I need the best divorce attorney in Boston, someone who destroys people in court. I don't care what they cost. Already done. I called him last night after you texted. You have an appointment with Laura Chen tomorrow at 9. She's represented 3 Fortune 500 CEOs in their divorces. Reputation for being absolutely ruthless. Perfect. Marcella, I'm sorry this is happening to you. Thank you. That means more than you know. Amanda Chen from the investigation firm called an hour later. Mrs. Rivington, I wanted to give you an early update. We've traced your husband's credit card activity. There are charges at hotels throughout the city on dates that correspond with your business trips. The apartment on Newberry Street he purchased last year? I've confirmed through building records that Vivian Torres is a frequent visitor. The doorman knows her by name. How frequent? At least twice a week for the past 6 months, sometimes more. I thought about the apartment. $340,000. That apartment was purchased with joint funds from our marriage. Yes, that could be significant in divorce proceedings. Asset purchased with marital funds used to facilitate an extramarital affair. What else do you have? We're pulling phone records now. Credit card statements going back a year. We'll have a complete picture within 48 hours. When Daniel and Sienna came back 2 hours later, they both looked devastated. Daniel's eyes were red. Sienna's face was blotchy from crying. They tried to justify it, Daniel said. Dad said you'd emotionally abandoned him, that he'd tried to make the marriage work, but you were never there. Vivian said they didn't plan to fall in love. It just happened. Like that makes it okay. What did you say? I told Dad that he'd broken something that can't be fixed, that every memory I have of him is now contaminated. Christmas mornings, baseball games, helping me with homework, all of it. Because the whole time I thought he was this noble guy sacrificing his career to raise me. Now I see he was just building a victim narrative to justify eventually betraying you. Sienna wiped her eyes. I told my mother I don't have a mother anymore, that she's dead to me. Sienna, that's extreme. You don't have to... Yes, I do. Marcella, you've been more of a mentor and mother figure to me than she ever was. You taught me about business, about standing up for myself, about building something that matters. She taught me how to be selfish and destructive. I'm done with her. The next 3 days were a blur of lawyer meetings, document reviews, and strategic planning. Laura Chen, my new attorney, was exactly what I needed. Mid-50s, steel gray hair, eyes like a shark. Massachusetts allows for fault-based divorce, she explained in our first meeting. Adultery is grounds. With the evidence you're gathering, we can push for a settlement heavily in your favor. The apartment purchased with marital funds to facilitate the affair? That's particularly damaging to his case. What kind of settlement are we talking about? Standard would be 50-50 split of marital assets. But given the circumstances and evidence, I think we can negotiate down to him receiving 20 to 30%. Maybe less if we go to trial and he wants to avoid public humiliation. How long will this take? Depends on whether he fights. If he's smart and his attorney is competent, they'll push for settlement, 6 to 8 months. If he fights and we go to trial, could be 18 months. I want this done as fast as possible. Then we make him an offer he can't refuse. We show him what we have, make it clear that fighting means everything becomes public record, and give him a deadline to accept. Over the weekend, I compiled everything. The emails where Gregory and Vivian discussed their relationship, text messages planning meetups, bank statements showing the apartment purchase and subsequent charges at romantic restaurants and hotels, Amanda Chen's investigation report documenting their movements, photos of them entering and leaving the apartment together. Sunday evening, Gregory called. I almost didn't answer. Marcella, we need to talk about how to handle this. There's nothing to handle. I'm filing for divorce. You'll be served papers this week. Can we please discuss this like adults? I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes, but we can be civilized about dividing assets. Civilized? I almost laughed. You want civilized after what you did? I'm entitled to half of everything we built together. You're entitled to what a judge says you're entitled to after reviewing evidence of your 8-month affair conducted in our marital home with property purchased using our joint funds. Silence. Then, quieter. You hired an investigator. I did. Very thorough woman. Amazing what she found in just 3 days. Marcella, please, if this goes to court, it will humiliate both of us. No, Gregory, it will humiliate you. I'm the wronged party. I'm the one who came home to find her husband with another woman. You're the one who betrayed your wife with your son's mother-in-law. Trust me, public opinion will not be on your side. What do you want? I want you to sign whatever papers my attorney puts in front of you without fighting. You take your share of retirement accounts, the apartment you bought for your affair, and enough cash to start over. I keep the house, the business, and the majority of investments. That's not fair. Fair? My voice went cold. You want to talk to me about fair? Sign the papers, Gregory, or I'll make sure every detail of your relationship with Vivian becomes public record. Every email, every text, every hotel charge, all of it. He hung up without responding. I sat there feeling something between satisfaction and emptiness, victory without triumph, justice without joy. That night, Daniel came over alone, found me in my home office surrounded by legal documents. Mom, are you okay? And I mean really okay, not just surviving. I looked at my son, 31 years old, good man, better than his father apparently. I'm processing. Some moments I'm angry. Some moments I'm just sad about all the wasted time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry Dad did this to you. It's not your fault. I know. But I'm still sorry. He paused. Sienna and I talked. We want you to know that you're not alone in this. Whatever you need, we're here. Thank you, sweetheart. That means everything. After he left, I poured myself a glass of wine and walked through my expensive, empty house. Thought about everything I'd sacrificed to build this life. Everything I'd lost while gaining success. The question wasn't whether Gregory's betrayal was justified. It wasn't. Nothing justified that. But the question that kept haunting me was simpler and more painful. If I could go back 10 years, knowing what I know now, what would I change? Would I still work those 80-hour weeks? Still take every business trip? Still prioritize empire over intimacy? I didn't have an answer. And that scared me more than anything. The envelope arrived on Wednesday morning. Legal papers officially served to Gregory at the Residence Inn. Laura Chen called me at noon to confirm he'd received them. His attorney contacted me within 2 hours, she said. They want to negotiate. Already? That was fast. Your evidence package scared them. They know they can't win in court. But Marcella, there's something else. Gregory's attorney mentioned that Vivian Torres is willing to provide testimony if needed. I sat up straighter. Testimony about what? About the state of your marriage. She's apparently prepared to testify that Gregory confided in her about feeling abandoned and emotionally neglected for years before the affair began. The audacity was breathtaking. The woman who'd slept with my husband now wanted to testify against me. Help him paint me as the villain. Let her try, I said. We have 8 months of documented evidence of their affair. Her testimony will only make them both look worse. That's what I told them. But it shows they're willing to fight dirty if pushed. I hung up and stared out my office window. This was Gregory's pattern, I realized. Always finding a way to be the victim. Even now, caught red-handed, he was constructing a narrative where I was somehow responsible for his choices. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Marcella, this is Vivian. Please don't block this number. I need to talk to you. What we're doing to each other is destroying our children. Can we meet? Just the two of us. No lawyers, no Gregory. Please. I stared at the message for a full minute. Every instinct screamed to delete it, block the number, never speak to this woman again. But another part of me was curious. What could she possibly say that would make any difference? Against my better judgment, I replied, when and where? Coffee shop on Newberry Street. Tomorrow. 10 a.m.? The irony of meeting near the apartment Gregory bought for their affair wasn't lost on me. But fine. I agreed. That night, I barely slept, played out scenarios of what Vivian might say. Apologies I wouldn't accept, justifications I'd demolish, pleas for understanding that would fall on deaf ears. I went into that meeting prepared for battle. Vivian was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back, wearing a plain black sweater. Nothing like the colorful bohemian woman I'd known. I sat down without greeting her, waited. Thank you for coming, she started. I wasn't sure you would. I'm here, talk. She took a breath. I know you hate me. You have every right to. What Gregory and I did was unforgivable. But Marcella, if we don't find a way to de-escalate this, we're going to destroy Sienna and Daniel's marriage too. Yeah, you destroyed it the moment you slept with my husband. I know that. But they're trying to survive this. Sienna won't speak to me. Daniel barely speaks to Gregory. Their marriage is under incredible strain because of what we did. And now, with the legal battle escalating, with both sides threatening to air everything in court, it's getting worse. What exactly do you want from me, Vivian? I want to ask you to accept a fair settlement, to not drag this through a public trial. Not for Gregory's sake or mine, for Daniel and Sienna. I leaned back, studied her. You mean you want me to make this easy for you? Let you and Gregory off the hook without consequences? No, there are already consequences. I've lost my daughter. Gregory's lost his son's respect. Our relationship didn't even survive a week after you discovered us. We're both paying. Not enough. What would be enough, Marcella? What number would make this right? What punishment would satisfy you? There is no number. There is no punishment. You took something from me that can't be calculated or replaced. 28 years of trust. The belief that my home was safe. The certainty that my family was intact. You can't pay for that. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. You're right, but I'm asking you anyway. Not as the woman who betrayed you. As Sienna's mother who's watching her daughter suffer. You should have thought about Sienna before you decided to sleep with her father-in-law. I know. Every day I wish I could take it back. But I can't. None of us can. So now we have to decide what we do next. Do we destroy each other completely? Or do we find a way to end this that gives Daniel and Sienna a chance? I wanted to throw my coffee in her face. Wanted to tell her to go to hell. But something in her broken expression stopped me. She wasn't lying about the consequences. Sienna had cut her off completely. I'd heard from Daniel that Vivian had tried to show up at their apartment twice, and Sienna had called building security. What exactly are you proposing? I asked carefully. I'll convince Gregory to accept whatever settlement you offer. I won't provide any testimony. I'll disappear from all your lives completely. In exchange, you agree to a quiet divorce with sealed records. No public trial, no newspaper coverage. We protect Daniel and Sienna from having their parents' affair splashed across court documents that anyone can access. You have a lot of nerve negotiating on Gregory's behalf. I'm not negotiating for him. I'm negotiating for my daughter. Please, Marcella. I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I'm asking anyway. I looked at this woman who'd helped destroy my marriage, saw that she was genuinely broken, that the affair that was supposed to cure her loneliness had instead left her more isolated than ever. There was a certain satisfaction in that. I'll think about it, I said finally. But understand something, Vivian. Even if I agree to a quiet settlement, that doesn't mean forgiveness. That doesn't mean reconciliation. It means I'm choosing to protect my son's marriage, not you. I understand. And you stay away from Daniel and Sienna. Permanently. You don't show up at their home. You don't call. You don't send letters or emails or try to contact them through mutual friends. You disappear. But Sienna is my daughter. Sienna is an adult who's made it clear she wants nothing to do with you. Respect that. Maybe someday, years from now, she'll change her mind. But that's her choice to make, not yours to force. Vivian nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Okay. Yes, I agree. I stood up. I'll talk to my attorney. If Gregory signs the papers without fighting, I won't push for a trial. But Vivian, if he changes his mind, if he tries to drag this out or make things difficult, all bets are off. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you both did. He'll sign. I'll make sure of it. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling strange, not victorious, not defeated, just tired, so incredibly tired of all of it. Laura Chen called that afternoon. Gregory's attorney just contacted me. He's prepared to accept your settlement offer, all of it. He wants this over. Just like that? Just like that. Someone got to him, made him see reason. I knew who that someone was. Vivian had kept her word. There was something almost tragic about that. The affair that destroyed 2 marriages, and in the end, the mistress was the one facilitating the divorce. Draw up the papers, I said. Let's finish this. The papers were ready by Friday. Laura Chen spread them across her conference table like battle plans. Settlement agreement, property division, retirement account splits, everything itemized and calculated down to the last dollar. He's getting $800,000 in cash, the Newberry Street apartment valued at $340,000, and his full pension, she explained. Total of approximately $1.1 million. You retain the Beacon Hill House, Rivington Properties, and all business assets, remaining investment accounts. Approximately $6.9 million. And he's agreed to all of this? His attorney confirmed this morning. We can have him sign as early as Monday. I should have felt triumphant. This was everything I'd wanted. Gregory walking away with a fraction of what he thought he deserved. Consequences for his betrayal spelled out in legal documents. But sitting in that conference room, all I felt was hollow. There's one more thing, Laura said. He's requested a meeting with you before signing. Just the 2 of you. No attorneys present. Why? He didn't say. His attorney called it closure. I advised against it for the record. There's no legal reason you need to see him. But I can if I want to? Yes. But Marcella, be careful. People do strange things when they're cornered. Don't let him manipulate you into changing the terms. I thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. Set it up. Tomorrow. My house. I want to meet him on my territory, not his. That night, I prepared for the meeting like I'd prepare for a business negotiation. Reviewed all the evidence, remembered every hurt, built walls around anything soft that might make me vulnerable to his explanations. By the time I went to bed, I was armored and ready. Gregory arrived at 10 a.m. Saturday morning. I watched him park in the driveway, sit in his car for a full minute before getting out. He looked older, thinner. The confident man I'd married had been replaced by someone uncertain and diminished. I opened the door before he could knock. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. "You have 30 minutes. Come in." We sat in the kitchen, not the living room where I'd found him with Vivian. That room was still contaminated in my mind, though I'd had it professionally cleaned twice. The kitchen felt neutral, safe. "I wanted to apologize," Gregory started. "Not the excuses I gave before. A real apology. What I did was wrong, unforgivable. I betrayed you in the worst possible way." "Yes, you did. I've been thinking a lot about how we got here, about my part in it. And Marcella, I need you to understand something. This wasn't about you not being enough. It was about me being a coward. I hadn't expected that." "What do you mean?" "I should have told you years ago that I was unhappy, that I felt invisible, that I needed more from our marriage. Instead, I stayed quiet and let resentment build until it poisoned everything. Then, when Vivian showed interest, when she made me feel seen, I convinced myself I deserved it, that your neglect justified my betrayal. It didn't. No, it didn't. Nothing justifies what I did. I could have asked for counseling. I could have demanded we talk. I could have left if I was that miserable. Instead, I chose the path that would hurt you most, our son most. That was cowardice, not passion. I looked at him carefully, searching for manipulation. But his eyes were clear, honest. This wasn't the man making excuses on the phone. This was someone who'd actually looked at himself and not liked what he found. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because I'm signing those papers Monday. Because after that, we'll probably never speak again. And I couldn't live with myself if I didn't say this first. You deserved better than what I gave you. Not just at the end, but for years. I should have been brave enough to fight for our marriage or honest enough to leave it. I chose neither, and that's on me. And Vivian?" He exhaled slowly. "That's over. Was over the day you found us. We talked once after, and she made it clear that she chose Sienna over me, which I understand. I'd choose Daniel over her, too, if he'd let me. He might. Eventually. He's processing a lot right now. I know. He sent me an email yesterday, first communication in 2 weeks. Just said he needed more time, but wasn't ready to cut me out of his life completely. It's more than I deserve." We sat in silence for a moment. I thought about all the years, all the choices, all the moments that had led to this kitchen conversation where we were dividing up the remains of our life together. "I have regrets too," I heard myself say. "I put work before everything. Before you, before Daniel, before any kind of life outside business. I knew our marriage was dying, and I just kept traveling, kept closing deals, kept building an empire as if square footage could fill the emptiness. That doesn't excuse what I did, Marcella. No, but it's still true. We both failed each other. You failed me by betraying my trust. I failed you by not being present enough to notice you were drowning. Neither of those things cancel out the other. They just exist together." Gregory's eyes were wet. "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" "I don't know. Maybe someday. But right now, I'm still too angry and hurt to see past what you did. You weren't just unfaithful, Gregory. You chose the one person who would maximize damage. Sienna's mother. In our home. That wasn't just betrayal. It was cruelty. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." "Good. You should." I stood up. "Your 30 minutes are almost up." He stood too. "The settlement you're offering is more than fair. More than I deserve. I'll sign Monday without any changes." "I know you will. Vivian already told me she'd make sure you did." Something crossed his face. Surprise, maybe. "You spoke to her?" "She asked me to meet her, begged me not to drag this through a public trial for Daniel and Sienna's sake. I agreed, but not for you. For them. Still," he said quietly, "thank you. A public trial would have destroyed what little relationship I have left with Daniel." He moved toward the door, stopped, turned back. "One more thing. The apartment on Newberry Street. I'm giving it to you." "What?" "I don't want it. I can't live there knowing what it was used for. It should be part of your property portfolio. Consider it partial restitution for everything I took from you. Gregory, that's $340,000. I know, but keeping it would feel like profiting from my own betrayal. So I'm deeding it to you. My attorney already has the paperwork ready. It'll be signed Monday with everything else." I didn't know what to say. Didn't know if this was genuine remorse or another manipulation. But looking at his face, I thought it might actually be the former. "Okay," I said finally. "Thank you." After he left, I sat at my kitchen island for a long time. Thought about marriage and failure and the complicated ways people hurt each other. Gregory was right about one thing. We'd both been cowards. Him for choosing betrayal over honesty. Me for choosing work over intimacy. And now we were both paying the price. My phone rang. "Daniel. Mom. Can Sienna and I come over? We need to talk to you about something." "Of course. When?" "We're actually outside. We saw Dad leaving." I opened the door to find them both on the porch, looking nervous. "Come in." "What's wrong?" We settled in the living room, the one I'd been avoiding. Daniel took Sienna's hand before speaking. "We went to see Vivian yesterday," he said. My stomach clenched. Why? Because Sienna needed closure, Daniel said. She needed to tell her mother face to face how much damage she'd caused. I went with her for support. Sienna's eyes were red. It was awful. She was living in this tiny studio apartment, lost 20 pounds. Looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. She apologized over and over, said she'd give anything to take it back. What did you say? I told her I'd never forgive her, that she was dead to me, and she just nodded and said she understood, said she deserved it. Then she told me something that changed everything. What? Sienna looked at Daniel, then back to me. She said Gregory came to her first. 6 months before the affair started, he came to her art studio and told her he was miserable in his marriage, that you were never home, never made time for him, that he felt like a piece of furniture in his own life. She said she started meeting him for coffee to listen, that it was innocent at first, just two lonely people talking. I felt my chest tighten. She's lying, trying to make Gregory look worse to deflect from her own guilt. That's what I thought too, Sienna said. But then she showed me text messages from before the affair, Gregory reaching out to her, asking to talk, saying he needed a friend who understood what it was like to feel invisible. Daniel pulled out his phone. She sent me screenshots. Mom, I don't want to hurt you, but you need to see these. He handed me the phone. I scrolled through messages dated 9 months ago, a month before the affair apparently started. Gregory's words on the screen. Thanks for listening today. Marcella and I barely speak anymore except about logistics. Sometimes I wonder if she'd notice if I just disappeared. You're the only person who seems to see me as more than a support system. And Vivian's responses. I understand. After my divorce, I felt like I didn't exist anymore. Your feelings are valid. You deserve to be happy. I'm here whenever you need to talk. I handed the phone back, feeling sick. Why are you showing me this? Because the truth matters, Daniel said. What Dad did was wrong. What Vivian did was wrong. But they didn't just wake up one day and decide to destroy 2 families. It was a slow progression of bad choices by people who were both in pain. And Mom, I love you, but you have to own your part in Dad's pain. My part? Anger flared hot in my chest. I worked hard to build a life for this family, to give us security and comfort. That doesn't give him permission to cheat. No one's saying it does, Sienna said gently. But Marcella, when was the last time you asked Gregory about his day, his feelings, his dreams? Before all this happened? I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't remember. Couldn't remember the last real conversation we'd had about anything except schedules and obligations. The silence stretched between us. That's what I thought, Daniel said quietly. Mom, you're my hero. You built something incredible from nothing, but you built it at the cost of everything else. And Dad tried to tell you. He tried for years. You just weren't listening. Tears were streaming down my face now. So this is my fault? I drove him to cheat? No, Daniel said firmly. Dad's choices are his own. He could have left, could have demanded counseling, could have done 100 things that weren't betraying you with Sienna's mother. But Mom, you can't keep pretending you're just the victim here. You neglected your marriage for years. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it explains why he was vulnerable to it. Sienna moved to sit next to me, put her hand over mine. We're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to help you see the whole picture. Because you're about to finalize a divorce that divides property and assets but doesn't address any of the real issues. And we're worried that you'll just throw yourself back into work and never process any of this. What do you want from me? I asked. We want you to consider therapy, Daniel said. Not couples therapy, obviously, but individual therapy to work through why you prioritize work over relationships. Because Mom, Sienna, and I don't want to become you and Dad in 20 years. We don't want to wake up one day and realize we've built a life with no intimacy or connection. We need you to show us it's possible to be successful and still maintain relationships. I looked at my son and daughter-in-law, both watching me with a mixture of love and concern. They were right. All of it was right. I'd spent weeks being angry at Gregory and Vivian, but I hadn't spent any time examining my own failures, the ways I'd chosen square footage over conversation, commission over connection, empire over intimacy. Okay, I said finally. You're right. I'll find a therapist. I'll do the work. Daniel hugged me. Sienna joined in. We sat like that for a long moment, three people trying to figure out how to heal from damage caused by people who were supposed to love them. For what it's worth, Sienna said after we separated, my mom's guilt is destroying her. I'm not ready to forgive her yet. Maybe never. But I can see she's genuinely devastated by what she did. That doesn't change anything, I said. No, but it's something. Knowing that our parents aren't monsters, just broken people who made catastrophic choices. After they left, I sat in my expensive house and thought about truth. How complicated it is. How rarely it's simple or one-sided. Gregory had betrayed me horrifically, but I'd abandoned our marriage years before his affair. Those two things existed simultaneously, neither canceling out the other. I picked up my phone and searched for therapists specializing in work addiction and relationship issues. Made an appointment for Tuesday. Then I called Laura Chen. The apartment Gregory's deeding to me, I said. I want to sell it. Donate the proceeds to a women's shelter. I don't want anything that was part of their affair. That's very generous, she said. It's not generosity. It's self-preservation. I don't want to profit from my own pain. Monday morning, Gregory signed the papers. I wasn't there. Didn't need to be. Laura called to confirm it was done. It's over, she said. You're officially divorced. 28 years ended with a signature. I felt relief, sadness, and something else. Something that might have been the first stirring of actual freedom. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I sold 60% of Rivington Properties to a commercial real estate firm for $6.2 million. Kept 40% as a silent partner, which meant consulting work about 15 hours a week and a steady income without the consuming responsibility. My colleagues thought I'd lost my mind. You're at the peak of your career, my former CFO said. Why would you walk away now? I didn't tell him that peak meant nothing if you were standing on it alone. That success measured in square footage was meaningless if your own home felt empty. That I'd spent 30 years building an empire and almost lost my soul in the process. The therapy helped. Dr. Patricia Morrison, 63, no nonsense, had a way of cutting through my defenses like a surgeon. Our third session, she asked me what I was afraid of. Afraid of? I repeated. I'm not afraid of anything. You built walls out of work, Marcella. Walls that high are always protecting something. What are you afraid of? I sat with the question for a long time. Being ordinary, I finally said. Being my mother, scrubbing other people's floors. Being invisible and powerless and poor. So you became the opposite. Visible, powerful, wealthy, but you're still invisible where it matters. To the people you love. You chose professional visibility over personal intimacy because intimacy requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like weakness to someone who clawed their way up from nothing. She was right, of course. Every achievement had been armor. Every property acquisition proof that I mattered, that I was worthy of taking up space in rooms my mother had cleaned. But I'd forgotten that the people who loved me never needed proof. They just needed presence. Daniel and I started having dinner every Tuesday. Just the two of us at first, then Sienna joined when she felt ready. We talked about real things. His anxiety about making partner at his firm. Sienna's dream of starting her own design company. My fear that I'd wasted decades chasing the wrong things. You didn't waste them, Mom, Daniel said one night over Thai food. You just got lost for a while. But you're finding your way back. Gregory and I spoke occasionally. Brief, cordial conversations about logistics. He was living in a small condo in Cambridge, working part-time as a consultant. Dating someone his own age, Daniel had mentioned. Someone with no connection to our family. I felt nothing about that. No jealousy, no anger. Just a distant hope that he'd learned something from the wreckage we'd made. The harder relationship was Sienna and Vivian. Sienna had maintained her boundary for 6 months before finally agreeing to see her mother at a neutral restaurant. I wasn't there, but Sienna told me about it afterward. She's different, Sienna said. Quieter. She's been in therapy too, working on herself. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just said she wanted me to know she was trying to become someone worthy of maybe having a relationship with me someday. How did that make you feel? Sad, angry, but also, I don't know, a tiny bit hopeful? She's my mom. I don't know if I can get past what she did, but I also don't know if I want to spend the rest of my life without a mother. I understood that completely. Forgiveness was complicated. It wasn't about excusing the inexcusable. It was about deciding whether to let the betrayal define you forever or find a way to move forward. I thought about Gregory often, about the good years before everything fell apart. The man who'd supported my dreams even when they consumed our lives. The father who'd sacrificed his career to raise our son. Those things existed alongside the betrayal. Human beings weren't simple equations where good canceled out bad or vice versa. We were messy and complicated and capable of both profound love and devastating cruelty. 3 months ago, I started taking a ceramics class, Tuesday and Thursday evenings at a studio in Jamaica Plain. My hands, so used to signing contracts and reviewing spreadsheets, learned to shape clay. I was terrible at it initially. My bowls were lopsided, my vases collapsed. But there was something meditative about the process, creating something with my hands that had no market value, no ROI, no purpose except beauty. The instructor, Marcus, was 65 and had been making pottery for 40 years. One evening, watching me struggle with a particularly difficult piece, he said, "You're fighting the clay. You have to work with it, not against it." "I'm used to forcing things into submission," I admitted. "I can tell. But that's not how this works. Clay has its own properties, its own limits. You have to respect that, understand it, meet it where it is." It occurred to me that this was true for relationships too. I'd spent decades trying to force life into my vision of success, never stopping to understand what the people around me actually needed, never meeting them where they were. I made my first successful bowl 3 weeks ago. It's slightly asymmetrical, the glaze uneven in places, but it holds water without leaking. I keep it on my kitchen counter, a reminder that imperfect things can still be functional and beautiful. Last month, I had lunch with Rebecca, my former assistant, who'd become a genuine friend through all of this. We sat at an outdoor cafe in the North End, watching tourists navigate the narrow streets. "You seem different," she said. "Lighter somehow." "I feel different. I'm working less, sleeping more, actually enjoying my life instead of just accumulating achievements." "Any regrets about selling the company?" "None. I thought I'd miss it desperately, but mostly I feel relieved. Like I've been carrying something heavy for so long, I forgot it wasn't part of my body. Putting it down felt like learning to breathe again. The house in Beacon Hill is too big for one person, so I'm selling it. Put it on the market last week. I've already bought a smaller townhouse in the South End, 1,500 square feet, 2 bedrooms, a tiny garden. More than enough space for me and the life I'm building now. Daniel asked if I was sure. "That house has so many memories, Mom." "Yes," I said, "and too many of them are painful. I need a space that isn't haunted by everything I lost there. Somewhere I can start fresh." He understood. He and Sienna are doing well. Their marriage survived the trauma our generation inflicted on it. They're more careful with each other now, more intentional about communication. They learned from our mistakes, which is all any parent can hope for. I see Vivian occasionally at family gatherings. We're civil. We'll never be friends, but we've reached a detente for Daniel and Sienna's sake. She apologized to me properly once, at Daniel's birthday dinner 3 months ago. Found me alone on the patio. "I know words are inadequate," she said, "but I need you to know that I'm genuinely sorry for the pain I caused you. There's no justification for what I did." "No," I agreed. "There isn't. I've lost everything that mattered because of it. My daughter barely speaks to me. My reputation in our community is destroyed. I lie awake at night, reliving that moment when you opened the door, wishing I could go back and make different choices." "We all have those moments," I said. "Choices we wish we could unmake. The trick is learning to live with them." She nodded and walked back inside. I stayed on the patio, thinking about forgiveness and whether I'd ever truly forgive her or Gregory. I didn't have an answer yet. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a destination, but a practice. Something you worked toward gradually, like learning to shape clay or rebuilding a life from rubble. Yesterday, I had coffee with a man named Thomas I met at the ceramics studio. He's 61, divorced, a retired history professor who makes beautiful sculptures. We talked about art and travel and books. He asked if I'd like to have dinner sometime. I said yes, not because I'm ready for a relationship, but because I'm ready to be open to possibilities, to stop hiding behind work and walls, to risk being hurt again because the alternative is safety without connection, And I've learned that safety isn't worth the cost if it means spending the rest of my life alone. This morning, I went for a walk along the Charles River, watched the rowing teams glide across the water, their movements synchronized and graceful, felt the October sun warm on my face, thought about my parents, who crossed an ocean for a better life, who worked jobs that broke their bodies so I could have opportunities they never did. I'd built the success they dreamed of for me, but I'd forgotten that success was supposed to be a foundation for happiness, not a replacement for it. I'd confused the means with the end, sacrificed relationships on the altar of achievement, and nearly destroyed myself in the process. But I'm 58 now, divorced, semi-retired, and rebuilding my life from scratch. And for the first time in 30 years, I'm actually looking forward to what comes next. Not because I have some grand plan or ambitious goal, but because I'm finally learning to value presence over productivity, connection over conquest, being over becoming. The empire I built still stands, but I'm no longer its prisoner. I'm free to walk away, to choose differently, to build something new. Not measured in square footage or dollar signs, but in moments of genuine connection. In Tuesday dinners with my son, in lopsided ceramic bowls, in the possibility of coffee with a man who makes me laugh. This is my second act, and this time, I'm writing it differently.